What's going on? This is RJ from Game News USA here, back today with another movie review. Today, we're going to go over the review scores for Kraven the Hunter. So, if you like this kind of content, want to support it, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let's jump into it. To understand Kraven the Hunter, you first must understand what Sony has been trying to do with the Spider-Verse. Having these movies that are about Spider-Man villains without including Spider-Man. Have they succeeded? No, I say it's been a resounding failure. Yes, the Venom series seems to have done okay. The critics still typically hate it. The fans are pretty okay with it. Madam Web was truly a low point. And I will say, Kraven the Hunter, the critic scores at a 15%, which is downright awful. However, the audience score is sitting at a healthy 71%. We've seen several movies lately do this, where they've had a really low critic score, but the audience score wasn't too bad. I attribute this to the fact that people are going to see the movie, like the premise of the movie, therefore they're buying the movie, they're not being disappointed with what they're getting. However, this coincides with the fact that no new fans are being made with these movies because they drastically and woefully underperform at the box office itself. So with these kind of circumstances, I tend to side with the critics in this situation when I usually wouldn't. And the critics downright hate Kraven the Hunter and have killed any interest I had in the movie. Why can't they make these movies with Spider-Man and have the villains? You could have Spider-Man versus Kraven the Hunter. You could have Spider-Man meets Madam Web. You could have Spider-Man versus Venom. Instead, they choose to purposely leave Spider-Man out. That's the first problem with these movies. The second problem with these movies are there's just too many. This year alone, we've seen Madam Web, we've seen Venom 3, and now Kraven the Hunter. It's overload that needs to be corrected. So without further ado, let's jump into it. This movie was released in theaters December 13th, 2024. It has a runtime of 2 hours and 7 minutes, which I think is a little too long in the tooth, if you ask me. Now, in the 1990s, I watched Spider-Man and enjoyed the episode that did involve Kraven. Did it need to be made into an entire fucking movie, however? I don't think so. Once again, 15% of Rotten Tomatoes. Philip Engel gave it a Rotten Tomato, saying, boring dialogues alternate with ugly, even surprisingly crude digital effects, and more or less successful action sequences. Tori Preston with a Rotten Tomato says, maybe if Kraven weren't a part of this doomed cinematic universe, it would have found some footing. But the weight of expectations and stench of failure proves too much for this middling action romp to withstand. Rachel Leishman with a Rotten Tomato says, the movie is bloody and aggressive and the action sequences make up for a lot of the bad script, but not enough for me to forgive this movie for what it did to my boy. How about a Rotten Tomato from Kim Newman, who says it's not an outright disaster, but it doesn't exactly make you hope Sony will fast track a Beetle, Molten Man, or Gibbon movie. Overall, the action is solid. If the movie came out in 2002, we'd probably all love it, said Dan Scully. How about Michael Phillips, also with a Rotten Tomato? The game has its moments, but Kraven the Hunter goes in one eye and in out the other, which has everything to do with genre fatigue. The studio's more than its audiences. Christina Newland, with a Rotten Tomato. As much as it tries to be cool, the plot lines of this villain origin story just don't hang together. Marco Druich with a Rotten Tomato, a combination of wasted talent, bland, derivative writing, lazy characterization, and overall lack of care and attention to detail. Keith Garlington also with a Rotten Tomato, even with a cast and fully committed Aaron Taylor Johnson doing everything he can to earn our investment. It's hard to find much to rave about in that way. Be the death knell for Sony's Spider venture. Corey Coleman with a Rotten Tomato says, if you're expecting a bad movie, you won't be disappointed. Cheryl Lambert with a Rotten Tomato says, if this is truly the end of Sony's Spider-Man universe, then so long. We hardly liked you. Rick Monsiato with a Rotten Tomato says, I suppose this movie could have been better, but with a weak premise to begin with, it seems doomed right out the gate. Casey Chong with a Rotten Tomato says, a generic Spider-Man spin-off movie that isn't worth watching. Jack Martin with a Rotten Tomato says, why? So much of Kraven the Hunter is just you asking yourself that over and over again. Candace McMillan with a Rotten Tomato says, it's weak, it's clunky. Cliched script offers no room for thoughtful, nuanced, or even interesting performances. They would have been better off hunting down a smarter, more engaging plot. Or just make it animated. How about a fresh tomato, believe it or not, from Patrick McDonald, who said, have everyone forgotten these are comic book movies? I guess I read in a different era, it's predictability is a killer. But with daddy issues, bro versus brat, a mysterious villain, and Adrisa DeBose not singing and dancing, it has the heart of a lion, literally. So he's trying to be counterculture to what the critics are saying. But sadly, we just read the first page here, and he's the only fresh tomato. Because Mike McGrahm with a Rotten Tomato says, a dud series wraps up with a major dud. How appropriate. Peter Howell with a Rotten Tomato said, Kraven the Hunter is a terrible movie, but you almost feel sorry for it. And finally, Jake Wilson with a Rotten Tomato says, like other Sony productions in the same vein, Kraven the Hunter alternates between entanglingly awful and just bad. Often intended tone is anyone's guess. And guys, that's it. We went through the first page of the review scores on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's getting slaughtered out there by the critics. Kraven the Hunter looks like it's a complete flop, both by the critics and by the box office numbers. So what did you all think? Are you all going to watch Kraven the Hunter anyway? If you did watch it, let me know. Thanks for watching. Much appreciated. RJ from Game News USA signing out. Have a good one.